Thanks, everybody. As the voiceover said, I'm Meredith Lindvall. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Wastewater, Nature, and Biodiversity at Cox Enterprises. And what a bunch of fantastic sessions we've had today. When I think back over all of the great speakers that we've heard from today, I think of three big themes that I wanted to share with you all. We've heard from leaders today about powering our state, ensuring that we have the talent needed to advance our clean technology and innovations, and from our key partners advancing and innovating in these sectors. Drawing all those together, we are thrilled to close today's session on talking about how communities are intentionally developing spaces for these same Georgians to live, learn, and work in. So let's just dive right in. Can each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your organization? James, let's start with you.
Happy to do so. I'm James Marlow. I'm President and CEO of Southface Institute, a 47-year-old nonprofit based here in Atlanta that's been doing energy and sustainability work on the cutting edge for a very long time.
Thank you.
Great, and I'm Mason Ailstock. I'm the President and CEO of Rowen. Rowen is a 2,000-acre knowledge community that we launched in 2020 in Metro Atlanta. It's in Gwinnett County, right off of 316, about halfway between Athens and Atlanta. And we're working closely with our higher education partners, both at the university system and the technical college system, to recruit global companies that are taking on challenges around life science, the environment, energy, ag tech, how we feed the world, and creating those partnerships.
Now y'all know where we're so excited to have this conversation. Tons of knowledge on this stage, and each of your organizations engages with sustainable developments in a myriad of different ways. So drawing on that, how have trends really evolved in the last 5 to 10 years, and what tools or strategies have been most helpful in developing not only partners, but opportunities or garnering investments?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Georgia Chamber, for hosting this event. This is the third year. It's been a fantastic group of people. I've been honored to be a member of the Georgia Chamber Energy and Natural Resources Committee for more than 12 years. I can't really comment on how many more than that. And we are also very happy at Southface to do a lot of work with Cox. Yes. We're working on a YMCA, and last year we did Boys and Girls Club. So Evelyn Bolden is our vice chair of Southface. Liz York, our chair, is in the audience. So how has it changed? I thought about this question a lot. First of all, what we do at Southface hasn't changed that much in the way we approach problem solving and innovation. What has changed tremendously is that now electric vehicles are commonplace. And we have solar energy. We're the top 7th state in the nation for large scale installed solar. We see innovation of all types, from things like composting and LED lights, which have evolved over the years. On electric transportation, so the earlier conversation, we host an organization called Clean Cities. There are 70 clean cities around the country, mostly funded through the U.S. Department of Energy. But the very first one was created at Southface. Over the years, we've had some of the first electric vehicles. Before the Olympics, we had a hydrogen vehicle at Southface. So we're just constantly trying to find business value and innovation.
Before the Olympics. That's a little while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So more than 5 to 10 years.
It's been a minute.
What about you?
For us, we are a very large but also new project for the state. And as it relates to tools and trends that we've seen, we've kind of had the benefit, with a little bit of an asterisk around it, of being born through COVID. And we learned a lot about how and saw how workforce patterns were changing, how the utilization of space was changing, how people viewed the natural environment and access to outdoors and nature was prioritized. And it was really interesting going through the early years of Rowen and designing the infrastructure and thinking about how we positioned ourselves in the market to connect those ideas together. And to be able to have the flexibility within a not-for-profit foundation to respond to those trends and incorporate new ways of building out our infrastructure, thinking about smart city technology and different instrumentation that we could incorporate into the design, to just kind of take advantage of that period when we launched. Also, a part of that was we created design guidelines, as you would imagine, with a project like Rowen, that would really be used to inform vertical construction and horizontal construction, landscaping, things like that you would typically expect with a set of design guidelines. But the way we approached it was a bit non-traditional. If you're familiar with the design guideline process, many times it's, thou shalt have a bike rack every 10 feet and it's going to be this color and that's what it's going to look like. Whereas for us, we took the approach of creating design guidelines that were really more aspirational rather than dictatorial. So we have things like reduce your stormwater runoff by 50%. So it's focused on outcomes. Now, how a company achieves that 50%, it doesn't matter. There's all types of new innovations that come about all the time that can help reduce stormwater runoff, impervious surface, porous paving, parking structures, create space for less cars, just reduce your footprint. But what we wanted to do is create space for those design firms that would be working with the companies to build at Rowen and the companies themselves to say, be innovative, bring solutions that have this type of aspirational outcome. And that's one example from our design guidelines, but that's the type of tool that we wanted to create that from a practical standpoint, our design review committee uses as the lens to look at how Rowen ultimately is built out over the next 30 plus years, where we'll have over 22 million square feet just at Rowen once the project is fully built out. So having that kind of structure that allows for innovation, invites innovation, and then allows for the evolution of technologies has been a really exciting way to engage with industry partners. And it also kind of vets out companies that you want to have as a part of your project, because not everybody thinks that way. Not everybody wants to be innovative. Not everybody wants to be challenged around what does their development look like for the environment, around sustainability, how they think about energy, how they think about their workforce. And when we put markers out in the market that establish those types of expectations, it starts to reveal those that align with those same values.
I feel like everyone in this room probably agrees that we're all headed to the same North Star, and there's a lot of different ways to get there. So I appreciate you calling out that flexibility, but being outcomes-based. I think that's really critical to all the work that everyone here does. Thinking about the historical trends that you just shared, we're going to look forward a little bit. So how have you taken those trends and used that to inform your key priorities over the last few years? And then how do you see your work evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? So we talked about trends from 5 to 10 years, over the last 5 to 10 years. How has it informed your priorities, and where are you headed in the next 5 to 10 years?
So at Southface, our core focus is on advocacy, education, and technical services and technical work. So it's kind of Nerdville at Southface. We have a lot of very, very technical people on staff that might be engineers or architects or planners. And what we try to do is make every building better. And when we say better, we mean using less energy, lasting longer, being a better investment, to being a healthier, happier building or home or community. We've done work with Serenbe since their very first vision charrette, and we continue to do work at Serenbe today, making that community stronger and a shining example of conserving 70% of the land. With other developments, we want walkability, bikeability. We want dark skies. We want to think about the whole system and think about how it all fits together and help people understand that the simple formula that sustainability done right equals savings. It means a better business decision. It means that you're going to, waste less. At Southface, we really don't like waste of any kind. That means wasting money. It means wasting materials. It means wasting energy or water. One of our favorite programs is a nonprofit focused program called Good Use, and we've worked with over 670 nonprofits in 33 states now, and we do a very technical ASHRAE Level 2 audit with them. We create a plan. We do a matching grant so that they can upgrade their lighting, upgrade their water heating, upgrade their HVAC systems. More and more, they add solar energy, like we've done with your project in Arizona with Boys and Girls Club. More and more add EV charging. We've been working across the state doing outreach around EV charging networks so that we comply with the NEVI plan and make it easy to charge and travel, like Stuart said, from the Georgia coast to Atlanta. but really just trying to consult and be a technical resource. One of the things we're really proud of at Southface, the very first public presentation by Ryan Gravel on the Beltline was hosted by Southface. So convening, connecting, showing people a vision of sustainability in our little headquarters, which has over 100 demonstration technologies, from a green roof to solar to composting to, composting toilets. So just, really finding technologies, finding where they work, finding where they don't work, and then finding where they can be applied, like great companies like Cox.
Absolutely. And I love that systems approach. I think that's a big way of thinking about how all of these things work together. We've got to make holistic decisions, but at the end of the day, totally agree with you that what's good for the business is also good for the environment.
For us, the priorities over the last 5 years have been interesting, because you can imagine when you launch a bit out of nowhere a 2,000 acre, 22 million square foot, 100,000 job future workforce hub in the region, that a lot of questions pop up, and not only from folks in economic development and industry, but also from the surrounding community. So one of our first priorities when we launched the project was really to get into community centers online, because again, it was kind of through the winding down part of COVID as well, and listen. When you have a development like this that's really being built for the state and for our university and higher education partners in the surrounding community, we made that a top priority, to listen, to gather feedback, and incorporate that feedback into the planning process. The other was we partnered with the University of Georgia Landscape Architecture and Cultural Resources team to do a study on the full 2,000 acres, really to understand the history of the land. There's a number of old home sites that are a part of the property. There's a grist mill that is from 1818 along the river where we front. There's an old doctor's office that is on the site. And other just interesting aspects that make a project really unique and special, that were important for us to really understand from the beginning. And then how do we incorporate that into our planning and embrace that history, embrace that as a part of just the authentic development that Rowen has the opportunity to create. The other piece around that from a priority standpoint was creating this structure of governing documents, things like the design guidelines, as well as use restrictions and our board structure, so that as we made these priorities around sustainability, around community engagement, around economic development, and the types of global companies that we wanted to recruit, that would be institutionalized and something that would carry forward around the board table, around how we budgeted, around how we hired, around where we made investments, so that vision wasn't just something that was there while I'm there, or while a certain board structure was there, but or board members were there, but really how does that play out over time, and creating the right guardrails around these aspirations of sustainable development, innovation, research, partnerships, so that those maintain and sustain. So that was the second one, really around governance, operation structure. And then the third, I would say, was getting to work. The land that we did acquire was old timberland. Most of it were pine trees. Our analysis early on identified the areas that would be ideal for development, and then the corridors and steeper areas that we would want to avoid, along with those historic sites, in order to design our infrastructure and get things in place so that we could turn this land into a location where we could recruit those global companies. That took a lot of time to do that design, bring on the different civil teams, go through a review process with Gwinnett County, and get that in place. So it's been busy, kind of all fronts, from community, governance, operations, to the real estate as priorities to get things kicked off.
A large project, and you're actually leading me into my next questions I wanted to ask you. We're all aware that economic development in Georgia is booming, and I'm going to start with you, actually, since you mentioned economic development specifically. As you watch the sustained record-breaking economic development going on in the state of Georgia, what do you see as some of the state's greatest opportunities, and how do you think these types of projects play a role in opportunity and visibility?
So Commissioner Dozier's name, his ears should be on fire, because I think technical college system has been mentioned several times. And I'm the son of two community college, we call them community colleges in Maryland, where I grew up. Both my parents worked at the community college, and I went to school there, got an associate's degree before going on to a four-year school. And I think the greatest opportunity, and I think even responsibility for us, is thinking about this next generation of workforce that connect both our technical college systems, our R1s, our R2s, our HBCUs, and how do we use our economic development prowess that we have curated that brand and reputation and have executed around. How do we position that as a pathway for this next generation of innovators and project leaders and investors to come around that and not just participate, but find ownership and an invitation to contribute in a meaningful way? And that takes a lot of intentionality of connecting the companies that we have and those that are scaling up back to K through 12, back to our colleges and our universities, so that people can see and understand the opportunities that are there, and then see the pathway of, well, what does that look like when I do graduate, or when I get a co-op, or when I get an internship? And then our responsibility on the private sector side of creating those frameworks, those structures that allow for an ease of access for all of those folks to be a part of it. So I think it's a really exciting way that Rowen is building a culture and even an expectation with the companies come in that that's how we live, that's how we operate. And if you're going to come here, that is the hope that, not even hope, that is how we want you to function here. And those are the introductions that we anticipate making on your behalf to our partners on the higher education side.
Really connecting the dots so that folks can see the future and their place in that community. It's really excellent. I love tying together all different levels of education. I think that's really important to help folks understand what those opportunities in this type of career and in the field and in economic development look like. James?
Well, this is a topic I really enjoy talking about because the battery belt and the clean tech economy in Georgia is really profound. I mean, we're talking about, the numbers are hard to keep track of, but working with the Office of Economic Development, we applaud what they've done, what the governor's been doing to support electric vehicle, batteries. It's like 33,000 jobs. It's like $22 billion in investment. It keeps going up. The Meta plant in Pooler near Savannah will have over 14,000 workers. There's 52 suppliers. So Q-Cells in Dalton, they produce 20% of the solar panels in the United States, or really this hemisphere. So we are really doing things that are helping the Georgia economy. We get the multiplier effect. So if we build solar projects with green power or Georgia Power with panels that were made by Q-Cells or put them on an industrial building or warehouse or distribution center, we're keeping that money in Georgia. We're not sending it out of state to purchase coal or fuels from Houston, Texas, or hedge fund people. We're keeping the money in Georgia. So that's really my central theme around this. At Southface, we're very collaborative. We work closely with GFA. We're growing our work with the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia. We do primary research with the Strategic Energy Initiative at Georgia Tech. So we're learning about the energy needs, the energy flows, and the energy economics here in Georgia. We also care very deeply about increasing energy efficiency, which saves everybody money. It also is beneficial to our utilities, and we care deeply about energy poverty and energy burden and energy opportunity. We want to see this work for everybody in our economy, in every community. That means every census tract, every zip code, and really just improving the lives of people in Georgia through good planning, good forward thinking, and future-proofing concepts.
Absolutely. And one of the things that when we were getting together to talk about this panel, I thought we've got to be sure that we have time for questions because we have such powerhouse knowledge on this stage. So I'd like to actually move us into Q&A so that we can get some good questions from the audience for you all while we have you. I see one in the back.
Talking about advancing power and power generation, a lot of folks aren't even paying attention that we've got a nuclear submarine base down St. Mary's, and they just launched this apprenticeship program to everybody. Come on by, we'll teach you how to build nuclear reactors, we'll teach you how to weld, we'll help teach you how to do all those trades in addition to support new submarines that are coming in. And yet nobody seems to even know that it's going on or that that opportunity exists. And I'd like to see how we can send our people and take advantage of the opportunity, because I see nothing but nuclear, these small modular reactors on our horizon as the solution to our energy crisis. Is that what y'all are seeing?
I mean, I'm happy to, we believe in an all of the above approach, really starting with energy efficiency, which is the most, energy you don't use is really the best energy. We believe in research for hydrogen. Southface and Georgia Tech hosted a world-class hydrogen event last December on the Georgia Tech campus. So we believe in studying all of those. I think the small modular nuclear reactors are further out than people think commonly. We need to use what we have today. I mean, we don't, there was a talk at Super South last week about we have all the technology we need. We just need to better implement it in our businesses, in our farms, our schools. I mean, I liked our conversations in the panels earlier about, respecting people that build things, which we work with people at Southface that build things. They build homes, they build buildings, they build schools, they build nonprofit buildings and communities. People that grow things. Our ag economy and our forestry economy are two of the largest economies in our state. And then people that really, create and design things like the School of Architecture at Georgia Tech and others. But, it's an all the above thing. We don't really say there's one way of doing it. We try to meet communities and projects where they are. We try to understand their goals, and we try to help them optimize and improve that project. For example, I was just speaking down in Darien, Georgia, in McIntosh County. They've got new development coming in. They have lots of needs in that community, but also lots of growth. So how do we help them do planning charrettes and vision sessions so that they create a plan that fits and works for that community?
I actually have a question then, if I can jump in. My team knows that this is one of my favorite questions. For a project that you're working on, what's something that has surprised you the most?
That is a good question. At Southface, we work with so many different types of projects. We did the LEED certification on the Hartsfield-Jackson International Terminal, pretty big project. We do tiny little projects. Last year, we worked with High Museum, Fox Theater, Oakland Cemetery, Tennessee Aquarium, Charleston Food Bank. One of the things that's been a big surprise to me is the value of supporting cultural institutions in our community. So Southface has been working with Fox Theater for a long time, but that also means Fox Theater Institute. So we've worked with theaters like over in Hartwell, Georgia last year. So a little small community. You can really gauge the health of a community by its cultural community and its assets. So if you see an old dilapidated theater in a community, and that's true of big communities, in Atlanta we were going to tear down the Fox. Fortunately, we didn't tear down the Fox. But the connection of culture, community, is really, really powerful. So if you look at a community like Brunswick, Georgia, where the creatives are there, Savannah has really been saved by SCAD and the creatives. So that's been a learning. Density of housing is something that I've learned a lot about in the last 3 years, that, density can be very powerful. So you get that walkability, you get that connection, you get more affordable spaces. So, there's just always something to learn. So that's really our approach, is that we don't know everything, and our goal is to bring together these partnerships to really help people find creative solutions and innovation.
Makes sense.
I'd say what's been interesting, the early work that we did identified agriculture, medicine, and the environment as the priority sectors where our higher education partners were really strong, where the state's economy is really strong, and where there's opportunities to lean in recruiting both the talent and the companies to be a part of it. What surprised me is we started having conversations around convergence and the intersections between things like agriculture, medicine, and the environment. And how we cultivate the earth to grow our food has a direct impact, of course, on our environment, on water, on many other things. The food that we put in our body has a direct impact on the drugs that we need to take or don't need to take, and how accessible is that food. So it was of interest enough early on, as we started having this conversation around convergence and kind of the gray area between spaces, that as we shared that with companies, that resonated with them, and saying, this is where we look for new investment opportunities. This is where we look for spinning up startups or partnering with Georgia Tech or with UGA or others around these areas of intersection. And that's really started to stick to the point where we're actually going to have it'll be the third year in a row where we hold our Convergence Summit. And it's this great opportunity where we bring together speakers from. Last year we had AGCO, we had Intuitive Surgical, other partners kind of in the region that lived in these spaces really to speak to not just their particular industry, but how does that industry connect and bridge over to so many other areas. And I think to me, that's a really exciting way to think about things because one, it's often how reality plays out. It doesn't just live in a box and that's where the solution is going to exist, or that's going to be your career, or that's going to be where just everything happens. So for people to understand that their workforce, that their research, that their interests can bleed into many other aspects is a really interesting and creative way to find solutions. And then number two, just as we do learn more and as we dig more deeply into these deep science elements that are required in taking on global challenges, you find that you have to have a diversity of inputs in order to come up with that solution. It's not just going to live in nuclear engineering. You're going to need science, air, sensors, all of these things that come around these different topics that are of global significance in order to find a solution. And that idea of convergence really lives there. So that's something for us, I could see us, it was a surprise in the beginning, and now we've just really embraced it to say, how is this a part of our culture? How is this a part of how we talk about the mission and vision of Rowen, and use that as a platform to engage with private sector partners that share that same value.
I promise I'll turn it back over to y'all for questions, but 1 second. How did you pick your three priorities that you just mentioned?
A lot of early research early on. It was looking at Georgia Tech, UGA, Emory, the USG system, technical college system. Agriculture was already mentioned as a #1 industry in the state. Certainly medicine around research, clinical research, health, wellness were a core part of it. And then certainly the environment, energy, sustainability as being, again, those areas where in the marketplace, how do you position yourself to stand out and to have access to the talent to support those companies that you're recruiting in?
Because you said my favorite words, which are meeting someone where they are. So at Cox, when we're working on our sustainability programs, it's really important about meeting people where they are and figuring out a way to move forward towards that common goal, whether that's energy efficiency, water, waste and circularity. I did see a question.
Yes, I got a small question. So how can renewable energy and energy efficiency applications be used in both for urban and rural and community improvement districts for economic development? Thank you.
I think I can take that one. Thanks for the question, friend. I think looking at energy, in agriculture, about 27% of the inputs or the cost of agriculture is energy. And that might be diesel, it might be natural gas, it might be electricity. So if we can become more efficient and use energy efficiency, we help all parts of the state. I think as we look at, in solar energy, I'm the Forrest Gump of solar. So warehouse solar, distribution center solar is my mantra right now, in that if we want to do something at scale that will have a system impact that will strengthen our grid by having energy where we need it. We've got over 15,000 distribution centers and warehouses, many as large as 2.5 million square feet. So we don't have to cut down trees or take ag land by using these buildings that are already built, and literally several hundred more are being built. So there are, policy barriers to doing that. There's needs for policy innovation. At Southface, we have a great relationship with Georgia Power, Southern Gas, Green Power. Jeff Pratt has done some great work across the EMCs and co-ops, and I love working with EMCs and co-ops. They're member-focused. They live in that community. They work in that community. They care about that community. So I think collaboration, I think policy improvements, I think warehouse solar. I do think emphasizing more energy efficiency, and that means better building envelopes, which means insulation and air tightness and air, making healthier indoor air quality is also part of that. So healthier communities make for better economic opportunities. So I hope I answered your question.
Great job.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much. Hi, Mason. This question's for you. My name is Sophie Armanakian with the Atlanta Hawks. What does meaningful collaboration look like for you at an early stage, especially with leaders across different industries?
It can mean a lot of things. I think if I had to break it up into three, meaningful collaboration with industry would, number one, connect back to this workforce of the future. So it's how are these companies connecting with co-ops, internship, mentorship programs that build some bridges and points of engagement directly with the students, I think is one. The second would be around research. There's a tremendous amount of research, obviously, that we do within Georgia and that companies are thinking about. So how are they innovating? How are they thinking about the future of their specific industry sector? And whether that's cross-pollinating with other companies that are either in their field of interest or perpendicular, right? It's more of a convergence type of research where they don't have a core competency, but they need another partner to dig in deeply around R&D is another really meaningful and exciting way for Rowen to engage, because in that capacity, we're almost serving as Switzerland. We're like a neutral convening point as a not-for-profit that has this mission in charge to help companies thrive, succeed, and have access to talent. So I think the research piece is really important. And then the third, I would say, is engaging in the community. You know, I came from Research Triangle Park in North Carolina a number of years ago. I was the COO of RTP, and one of the things that's interesting about the history of RTP that has kind of died away nationally, unfortunately, but I want to bring it back, is corporate responsibility. And some companies are great about that, not all of them, because it costs money and it takes time. But it's meaningful. And the people that are at these companies are also moms and dads and brothers and sisters, and they're people that care about the community. So engaging in a meaningful way in the surrounding community in a whole variety of ways, I think says a lot about the value that we have both for the places that we call home, how we recreate, how we care for our public facilities, how we care for accessibility to education and different things like that. So I think engagement in a meaningful way that brings people out of their office building and has a bit more of a level of humanity in how we use our professional intellect in a capacity that also brings community benefit is an exciting aspect to me. That, again, that can manifest in a lot of different ways. I think what we need to have is, one, a culture that encourages that and even expects that as a part of being a part of a place. And then two, creating pathways and an invitation that allow people to explore that and to create value, both that is for profit, and maybe there's some generation around market and things like that, but also around just the intangibles where there's connections and value that are made with people. So those would be the three I would think about.
James, you all do a lot of stakeholder engagement as well, so I'd love
We
to hear
do.
from you.
We take the role of convening and connecting very seriously. We'll have a SART event coming up a week from Friday. I guess it's May 9th. My dates are messed up. But we'll have David Cummings and Maria Saporta and Hannah. David Cummings is behind South Downtown. They're redoing 54 buildings downtown. We love adaptive reuse. We think the history of downtown, the culture, the great architecture that's down there, preserving that. We think all those are really, really important because we can only do this together. And RTP, Research Triangle Park, is a great example. It started in 1955, so it didn't happen overnight. It was public, private, corporate, university. So when we get those things coming together, you can see really big things happen. So I think that collaboration is really, really important. And sometimes it's just literally connecting people we don't know or you don't know. And, Atlanta and Georgia is a small place, but it's a big place. So I say orbits. There are orbits of people that need to be brought together. I mean, we work with the Cox Clean Tech folks. We work with the clean tech teams at Georgia Tech and ATDC. And so by having that corporate, academic, university collaboration, we find a lot of power.
And Sophie, from my perspective, I think a lot about orienting all of the stakeholders to what's in it for them. I think that's really important as you consider being a convener and thinking about moving forward large-scale projects wherever they may be, thinking about translating and bringing everyone together towards something that's common. I think it's a really important exercise to say, what is this stakeholder, what is this community member, what's in it for them, and where do we align on a way that we could move forward together and getting that feedback. Any other questions?
A couple of comments. So first of all, I would encourage all of you to think longer term. You know, we need to be doing 100-year thinking. You know, we need to build buildings that last a long time, and that we need to care for them with proper operations and maintenance and understand not just the first cost. There's a maniacal focus on short-term daily profits now. We need to be thinking about life cycle cost, life cycle analysis. You know, we're here at a really great enterprise, the Coca-Cola Company, and Goizita, when he built this global empire, he was thinking long-term. He was thinking globally. He was thinking about assets. Warren Buffett, you know, that crazy guy who's, you know, talking about value and not cost. There's too much focus on cost right now. We need to think about long-term value. Buffett's favorite hold pattern is, you know, forever, you know, so that if you're going to build a building, think about that 100-year thinking. At Southface, we'll use a phrase a lot of times, zoom out and think really big picture, you know, and look at the whole systems and how they fit together, because, you know, it's about building rich communities. And I think more and more community is really where it's all at, whether it's a business community, where it's an academic community, but we really need, you know, all of that connectivity in our thinking and that long-term view.
I agree with you, and I know there's a lot of collective wisdom in this room that can help us crack the code on that full value accounting. It's definitely a challenge as we think about not just quarter to quarter and not even, right, we opened our panel asking about where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years. But what I'm hearing you say about is we need to think about the next 100 years.
The longer term we think, I think the more successful we're going to become. And that this short-term thinking is really a cancer, and it's really causing people to make really, really bad decisions, and that we really need to be thinking about these life cycle costing and analysis, and include the health and well-being cost, because I think we're doing a lot of things, you know, in the business community that are just so short-term that, you know, we're not thinking about long-term health cost, or, you know, what are the health impacts. Indoor air quality in a building is something we care a lot about at Southface. So if we make buildings healthier, if you have a child with asthma, as I did, you know, there are things that you can do to make that better, and you can avoid emergency room visits, and you can avoid sick days. And if you're doing that for workforce development and training, it means you have employees that can go to work and show up and be great employees. So it's really all connected, and these are not isolated things.
That holistic thinking. For those that haven't embarked on that journey yet, do you have a tip on where to start capturing the health impacts?
Mm-hmm. On health impacts, I think you need to look at the condition of your building. You need to bring in expertise, if needed, to help you address you know, just the indoor air quality of the building. Where is it? Because you literally have bad air days, and parents will keep kids home because it's a bad air day and they have severe asthma, and they're actually putting them in a building that's got worse air quality than outside. And we put kids on diesel buses, which doesn't help. So, you know, we need to look at the whole system and think about really what are the societal costs for that. If we have less kids that get sick, they're in school, they're going to have better opportunity, the families are going to have better opportunity. So there are a lot of things that are really interconnected. So if you had, you know, in a lot of low to moderate income homes, you have leaks, which create mold, which create unhealthy environments. So you got to stop the leak first, and then you do critical home repairs, and then you look at upgrading, you know, filtration and HVAC equipment. One of my favorite projects we've done at Southface is really, if this building fell over, it would almost hit the Salvation Army Red Shield facility, which is Atlanta's largest homeless facility with 300 men's barracks and 50 family units. So they were a good use grantee. So we helped them do an assessment of this 50-year-old building. They're building a new building now. We're helping them with the new building as well. But we helped them not only upgrade lighting to very natural lighting, so you go in this barracks and it doesn't look dingy, it doesn't smell dingy, because we helped them configure their HVAC equipment in a way that you had very healthy, natural import of outdoor air into the system, but also pathogen removal equipment. So we were helping them remove cases of flu and cold, not only for the clients, but for the staff. But then COVID came along, and that building, being even a barracks, didn't have any outbreaks of COVID. So, you know, indoor air quality really matters. COVID's a pretty good example of that. But, you know, really thinking about how we look at buildings and communities as systems, and how we do long-term systems thinking.
Wow. As a former employee of children's healthcare and pediatric pulmonology, definitely agree with you on the asthma perspective. From a Rowen perspective, I know you are also taking a long-term view, thinking about the next 100 years in this lens. Any final thoughts you want to share with folks?
No, I agree completely with everything that was shared. That's the heart behind having a not-for-profit structure for Rowen as the owner of this vision and real estate itself, is to have that sustained long-term purpose behind the project. And for me, that gives me comfort every day, because there isn't a reason to not be bold and to look that far ahead around how we do take on challenges together. And that's exciting, because that's not the way the rest of the world and often thinks or tells you to think. But when we create physical places and communities that are dedicated to doing that, it's an exciting process to be a part of and invite other people to join.
That collaboration is so key, and I want to thank both of you for your time today. This was a really energizing conversation. And for those of you that have questions, please connect with the panelists after this to learn more about them and their organization and where the future of the next 100 years of their work is going. So let's give our panel a round of applause.
I would like to say one more thank you to Chris Clark and team and the Georgia Chamber. They're doing some great work here, and we appreciate them convening and hosting you today. Thank you.